Wood, fire, earth, metal, water.
Wood, fire, earth, metal, water.
The 5 elements.
Mm-hmm. The 5 elements is what brings everything together in our universe and our health. If you don't have your health, what do you have?
You are a functional medicine doctor.
Join us as we blend modern and ancient wisdoms to be well now.
Welcome to the Be Well Now podcast, the 5 elements episode. I'm Nick, the Curious Patient.
I'm Dr. Ron Dummar, Chinese medicine doctor, functional medicine doctor, and chiropractic physician.
This episode's going to be fire.
And maybe a little bit of earth.
Water.
And some metal and wood.
And wood. Let's talk about these 5 elements. To me, it all seems very outdated. It seems mystical. It seems not advanced. But I'm sort of playing the devil's advocate here because I believe in what you do, and your medical practice is rooted in Chinese medicine.
Mm-hmm.
What did I get right or wrong there?
No, I think what you did was great, and my medical practice is very rooted in Chinese medicine. It's also rooted in modern science and the combination of the two, right? So we have best practices that we follow in our clinic, and we take all of these best practices, you could say, from modern time and from ancient time, and we pair them together to create sometimes new applications that benefit our health and our physiology. So we use modern technology to benefit us as we use the thought process and the philosophy that benefited us anciently. You mentioned even before the show saying, well, I know this isn't necessarily science, but it seems more than that. And I actually really liked that comment.
Well, we were looking at a diagram, and I'll show an image here of a body with all the acupuncture points and meridians. And I said, something here feels true to what it is to be a human, which is like very profound and complex.
Absolutely. And we were looking at the meridians, the neurological pathways that the nerves outreach from the brain to test and sample physiology and detect what's happening in the external environment and give feedback to the brain so that it can essentially shore up what needs to happen with the internal organs. So that is incredibly scientific. But when you think about it anciently, them discovering and coming across these meridians and these pathways and their description of them, it has provided for us an opportunity to follow patterns and to establish algorithms, you could say. We love algorithms now in our modern science, but they've had algorithms that they've established for thousands of years, and they've continued to build on them. It's not like they just at some point in time, thousands of years ago, said, okay, this is the way the medicine works. It's advanced year after year, and it's continued to be added to a little bit here and a little bit there. But the cool thing is that for thousands of years, the system's biology, which is what this pattern is, it's a system in which we can apply application or therapeutic medicine and have a specific effect, an intentional effect that is desired. And so we follow these patterns, and the patterns themselves have largely remained the same for thousands of years, which means there's something right happening. Right? There's validity in the repetition over billions and billions and billions of patients treated, and the therapeutic result being the same.
And we want to talk about the elements.
Yes.
And part of that is a discussion.
So it's like a springboard, right? So it's like understanding, well, like what I'm trying to give to the patients today is basically the basic of my understanding, or where I'm going to start from with all my patients. When I see a patient walk in the door, okay, what pattern do I see happening here? Where do I springboard from? Right? Now, there are obviously more technical things and advanced applications and strategies and even more advanced reasoning that I use on top of that. But this is the basis that points me in the direction that I want to go. And if you can't be pointed in the direction initially that you want to go, you're thumbing around forever, oftentimes like we do in Western medicine, being like, I don't know, let's do this test. I don't know, let's do this test. I don't know, let's do this test. And people end up with all these variety of tests and with no answers. So what Chinese medicine does is it goes down, or maybe you could say up a level, where it's looking at things from more of a macro view and saying, okay, overall in this system, what's happening and what element does that refer to? And so which part of the body should I be focusing on? Therefore, I can aim my therapeutics in that area and have a more sophisticated and a more intentional effect.
Okay. We're 9 minutes into the podcast. We haven't talked about any of these elements.
Let's start, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay. So the element that I'll start with, because I think it makes a lot of sense, is wood. Most people burn wood, or they're familiar with wood burning. Wood essentially is generated by water, though, right? Because it has roots that it pulls water up out of the ground, and it uses that water to support its structure so it can grow tall and reach up and get sunlight and everything. So wood is dependent on water, and it generates fire. And that ultimately is the life cycle, you could say, of wood. So when we look at wood, I would say if wood seems to be an issue, in the pattern, then I might wonder, is water an issue? Is water not supporting wood?
And what is wood in the body?
And wood is liver, gallbladder. It could be an emotion, like somebody could be expressing the emotion of anger or depression, anxiety. That's a wood-related experience. You could be having issues with the flavor sour, right? The sour flavor is related to the liver. Now, oftentimes those sour, like lemon and things like that, are actually beneficial for the liver. And so that's a therapeutic treatment that you can implement and say, okay, let's use lemon in water. And a lot of people use that nowadays. They squeeze lemon in their water to benefit their liver. And that's because of the sour nature of the fruit itself. The eye, all of these organs refer to a sensory organ. So the wood relates to the liver and gallbladder, but there's a sensory organ that is responsible or refers back to wood as well, and that's the eye. And that's a pretty interesting connection, because we know when infants are born, or if somebody does develop jaundice, oftentimes jaundice is a liver and gallbladder related issue. And oftentimes the first sign of that is seen in the eyes, like with a yellow color, yellowish, greenish color in the eyes. And so the eye is an area that will show a dysfunction in the liver. Patients who have allergies, they come in with like seasonal allergies even, or hay fever, which is it's a condition that affects the liver because the liver is trying to clear and detoxify the blood from some of the external pathogens that are invading it. But it will lead to irritation of the liver itself, and the eyes will start to become red. So they'll have like itchy eyes or redness, and they'll even develop sometimes a runny nose from it. So the climate that's related to the liver is wind. So if you have like tremors or seizures, or sometimes people will have little spasms around their eye or their cheek, this is a liver condition that can be ameliorated by using acupuncture to stimulate the liver organ to help it be balanced, calm, sedated, or nourished, or utilizing herbals as well.
Got a bunch of herbals on the table. I said, bring something to show and tell, just in case this gets boring, because that's how I talk to you.
I don't think it's getting boring yet, but we do have a formula here that does have some significant liver benefiting herbs in it.
This is Happy Day?
Yeah, my dad is known for saying happy day a lot. He just would say that all the time. Happy day. He would answer the phone when I was a kid. Happy day, and so I named this
song
formula
in
Happy
Sister
Day.
Act 2. He's like, oh, happy day.
Oh, happy day.
Yeah,
Yes,
I know
exactly.
it's a church song, but anyway, it's a good formula.
Happy Day is a great formula, and it's actually a formula that we use. It's a very mild formula, but it's a formula we use initially even for patients who are maybe feeling a little bit depressed or even mild anxiety. And it works really well for that, but it works on the liver. Okay? So those are some patterns and maybe some applications that we gave to you that could be beneficial through the liver.
Because you're blending all these herbs and you're apothecary back there.
Exactly. Our herbal pharmacy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I say apothecary. I don't even know what that means. Is that an offensive word?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not. Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. So that's wood.
So the next one is fire. So wood generates fire, right? Because it burns.
So why treat the liver in acupuncture if you could treat the water before the wood?
Yeah. So that's a brilliant idea, because I might feel like the person is actually experiencing anxiety or even depression because they're taking too many stimulants that are overstimulating the kidney and the adrenals and causing the kidney and the adrenals to overwork. And the kidney and the adrenals are related to water. So water could be the area that we actually need to help, right? So if there's obviously if you have anxiety and you're taking stimulants, okay, well, we need to adjust that. We need to address that, okay? And that is a water overstimulating the liver, okay? And so we need to address that issue for sure, but that's going back to water. And I love that you brought that up, because it's a generating cycle as we go through here. And I'll show you at the end of this as well, the cycle and all together, and how these organs support and generate one another. But now fire.
Okay, fire.
Fire is related to the heart. Fire in nature is generated by the wood. The heat consumes the water, right? And as things dry up, it can combust into fire. So fire consumes the wood and transforms it into ash. And ash will fall to the ground, and as it falls to the ground, it continuously falls to the ground, it builds up and accumulates. And eventually that top portion, the earth that it generates, like it even does this, you could look at from a standpoint of the like volcanoes and the tectonic plates in the ocean, and the volcanoes that create more earth and crust substance for us. It's constantly this fire that's generating earth. Fire generates earth, right? It's a very natural substance, right? It's a very natural occurrence and phenomenon we see happening, just like we were talking about at the beginning of the episode in the podcast. These are things that we observe in nature. And science, we have to acknowledge, is something that we observe in nature and hope to prove true through our experimentation, right? We're trying to describe the process that occurs in nature. And we hope through our validation and our repetition of certain experiments that that what we suppose or what we theorize comes out being as true as possible. So that's science. It's really a description of what the world is giving to us. And so by following this, we say fire becomes ash, turns into earth. It contributes to the mineralization. So there's mineralization in the ash and everything as well. And those minerals eventually find each other, and they can condense and form and bind. And as they bind and form, then we end up with certain metals. So fire is generated by wood, but fire generates ash, okay? And then it falls to the ground and contributes to earth. And that's what the life cycle of fire is. So the season of the fire is summer. That kind of makes sense, right? And the organ is heart and small intestine. The color is red. The emotion is joy. There are something to think about a lot is with regards to the heart and the emotion being joy is those experiences you hear. Sometimes people will have such an incredible experience. They'll have such a joyful experience that they'll have a heart attack, where the joy becomes so great or the experience of the heart becomes so overpowered that they develop a heart arrhythmia or disruption in the heart rhythm. Okay. The taste, sometimes people can have a bitter taste. If there's a heart dysfunction or a heart issue going on, they can have a bitter taste in their mouth. And the sensory organ is the tongue. So we often will look at the tongue to get a clue overall of the tongue of how the heart is doing. And sometimes people have long midline cracks, and that'll be an indication of tongue or of heart health and the need to nourish and benefit the heart. The tissue is the blood vessels, which makes sense. The sensory organ is the tongue, we mentioned that, and the climate, again, is heat. So that's your fire.
Okay.
And so when we're looking at conditions, these can be even like manic type of conditions. Manic depressive conditions can be more related to fire and a disruption in that. And so we do have herbals as well for these patients to help calm and cool the fire and subdue that. And also we use water, like kidney nourishing and water or hydrating herbals and cooling, heat cooling herbs or anti-inflammatory herbs in that concoction when we do those.
Earth.
So the earth, get moving. Okay, so the earth. The next one is earth. Earth is generated by fire, as we talked about before in nature. As the fire generates ash, it falls to the ground, accumulates, leaving behind rich nutrients that are dense in the soil, and it's ready for even sprouting and growth. So it contributes. You can see how all of these things contribute to one another. As the minerals, though, within the ash bind and can accumulate together, you get binding of metals. So you eventually get the accumulation of metals within the earth. And that's from this accumulation of minerals that find one another and bind together, and you're left with these metals. So earth essentially generates metals. Okay? So earth is generated by fire, and earth generates metal. That's the life cycle of earth. The season, there isn't really a season of earth. It's the panacea. It is earth itself. Organs are the spleen and the stomach. So we're thinking about a lot of digestive related, breaking down, we're using enzymes and things in the body when we're thinking of earth and the patterns of earth dysfunction. We could see the color yellow or yellowish, or the behavior that a person might experience would be pensiveness or shyness if they're more of an earthy individual. The flavor would be sweet. You may even crave sweet. If you crave sweet, then it's very likely you have a spleen or a pancreas issue that needs to be addressed. And we see this a lot in our society with insulin resistance and blood sugar related issues, where it's rampant in our culture. I think there's like worldwide, there's millions, upwards of 50 million people who suffer from blood sugar conditions and insulin resistance, and it affects people all over the world. So liver, this is spleen and stomach, insulin resistance, and blood sugar is a spleen and stomach dysfunction. And so that's something that we would use a lot for patients. Mouth and lips is an area that would be affected. So you could experience like dryness, you could experience like incessantly dry lips, or you could have even sores or swelling in your mouth or gums. And then I did get something here for this that we like to use. This one is for skin and beauty. Ozonated olive oil can be really beneficial for this. We use the oral care. This is our ozonated olive oil for oral care. And it has in it some some clove and peppermint to help with pain relief and also anti-inflammation to help calm down some of the sore and the swelling that might be in the mouth. Now that's a topical thing, but in the mouth it would definitely go systemically as well. But it's something that can help with any of those sores or lesions. And the likelihood is if you're having a sore or lesion in your mouth, you're very likely having them in your gut or your GI. So it's not just your mouth completely connected. So it's likely that you also have digestive related issues or conditions that are happening that we need to address. Okay? And blood sugar might be one of those. The other thing with spleen and earth is that if you wake up in the morning and your body just kind of feels heavy or achy, this is like your muscles themselves maybe are a little bit more swollen or full than they otherwise would be. And this is a condition of spleen that can be addressed with herbs and with acupuncture. So the next one?
Metal it is. So spleen to metal. Metal is lung,
And the metal in nature is generated, again, like we said, by the ash falling and the minerals accumulating, and then they bind. These minerals find each other, they bind, and they form precious metals and even stones. The metals bind. The more that the rock and the metal forms, the greater likelihood of water being pushed away. So if you pour water over metal, it doesn't really absorb it, right? There's no binding of water to that. But if you see minerals just in the ocean, or it's not like a block of metal, of steel, it's just mixed in with it, right? And so it's almost loosely bound to the water when it's in the ocean, right? Or when it's in a mineral spring or in a river like that. But as it begins to accumulate in the earth and it comes together, it forms and becomes metal. Okay, and then what it does is it essentially almost repels, you could say it repels water. So it allows water to accumulate. Otherwise, it would all just be held in there like in like a mud bog. And so it allows water to accumulate. And so that really is the life cycle of metal. It's generated by the earth, and it generates water. Which seems that's a really tricky one for people to go, like, how does metal generate water? But again, it's the idea of minerals are symbiotic with water, and they're in loose bonds with water generally. But as they start to come in contact with one another and they form their bonds, they essentially form metals like gold and silver and different things like that. And they percolate through the ground, and it pulls those minerals, and then boom, a mineral gets drawn off into another, like a line of gold or something. And then the water continues to percolate through. And so it's like the metal is repelling the water or allowing it to accumulate. So metal generates water. The season of metal is autumn. And the organs are the lung and the large intestine. So when we have patterns that we see people have lung issues, or they have allergies or symptoms like that, then we're looking to address minerals. We're looking to address metals in the body. We're looking to make sure that everything's balanced as far as the water and the metals go. Okay. The color is white. And the emotion is sad. And if you think about this with as it relates to the lung, at a funeral, if you've been to a funeral recently or ever, you notice that people tend to have a lung disruption, right? And so you see like that type of expression happening or emotion, and it affects the lung, and people almost, it's a reaction that's happening energetically, like they almost cannot control it. And that is a disruption temporarily in the neurological pathway as it relates to the lung specifically. Okay. So, and it's induced by sadness, sorrow, deep sorrow even, or hurt. So those type of things are going to affect the lung. So people may have repressed sorrow or sadness or things that they haven't fully resolved in any of these conditions, but certainly with sadness and sorrow. And it will eventually affect or cause disease within the lung if they don't address that. Okay. Pungent is the taste. The tissue is skin. So the lung actually governs the skin layer. And that makes sense because as you get your heart rate up and you start breathing heavier, your pores expand. They open up. So your body literally breathes, right? And it sweats and releases moisture. So the lung and the skin are interrelated. Sense organ is the nose, and the climate is dryness.
Water.
Okay, so for water is super interesting. Again, we come back to the metal generating water. As minerals accumulate from the ash that's fallen, minerals accumulate, they come together, they begin to repel the water. And the water is able to percolate and to gather together, and it's left to accumulate in springs and aqueducts and rivers and even in oceans. And so the water provides a life source to plants, to trees, and it helps to benefit all of the growth around us. And we see these these prairies and these landscapes throughout Africa where they have a rainy season where the water comes, right? There's like nothing. It's barren. It's like dry and even cracked. And all of a sudden water comes, the rainy season. And then what's left behind is all this plant life and growth for a period of time. So the water generates the wood. It generates plant life, that cell structure that is unique among all plants, that is different than our physiology. We don't really have a cell wall like plants do, but the structure is quite similar at the same time. But the life cycle ultimately of water is that it's generated by metal and it generates wood. So now we've kind of come full circle here. So the season of water is the winter, the cold months, when it's, you would think maybe the rainy season in some areas. The organ is the kidney and the urinary bladder. Well, that makes sense. Water to all of us, right? Well, that's where it runs through. The color is black. The emotion is fear. And I often say to people, well, think about that time when you scared somebody so bad that they peed their pants. Right, so it's like it releases an emotion within the body that the kidney and the ureter is essentially activated or becomes dysfunctional temporarily, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I peed my pants!" Right, and so that is a literal neurological feedback loop that can happen with the kidney meridian. The taste is salty, so if you think about what would benefit the kidney does so much with minerals in the body as far as balancing of minerals, right? And regulating sodium and potassium and the exchange of nutrients within the cell, that giving those minerals or providing those minerals in the form of salt, which is traditionally salt pulls the minerals out of the ocean, right? So we get all of these minerals bound together from the ocean, and that contributes to the health of the kidney by taking that salt. The tissue is bone because, again, it's mineralization, and the water carries mineralization. And then just like it happens in nature, the water carries this mineralization, and as we move it through different parts of our body, it binds to our bone, and it creates a strong structure just like metal or steel or even calcium carbonate that we see throughout the world. And so our bodies are symbiotic with the world around them. And these 5 elements ultimately are literally the connection that we can see. It's symbiotic in the external environment as well as the internal environment. And that's what I love about these 5 elements, is it helps me as a practitioner to connect everything around me and everything around the patient with what I see in a pattern that's occurring within the patient.
You've got a visual with that?
Oh, yeah. So let me pull this up for everybody.
Very high-tech, AI generated.
Yeah, this is obviously AI generated, right? They can search that. So right here we have fire. That's the one up top, fire. And that's related to the heart and the small intestine. And fire falls, creates ash and falls to the earth and creates earth. And that's the spleen and the stomach. And the earth generates metal. And the metal is lung and large intestine. And then the metal generates water, and that's kidney and urinary bladder. And then the water generates wood, and that's the liver, gallbladder. And then the wood generates fire. And the circle of life continues.
Is this like systems biology or systems?
That's exactly what this is.
So did this come like the idea, if there were modern day practitioners or practicing systems medicine? Correct. This is kind of the original?
This is like the ultimate original systems biology, yes.
And is that the way you think medicine's going?
Oh, I think the future of medicine is systems biology. Yeah, for sure.
And the future
is
rooted in thousands
medicine.
of years of wisdom here.
Yes.
And that's where you incorporate it.
It's about building. Yeah, it's about building on the knowledge that we've been handed and not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? Like you said at the beginning, we could think it might be archaic. Oh, it's rather archaic. And okay, that might be true, but that doesn't mean it has nothing to offer. Just because something is ancient or old doesn't mean it doesn't have anything to offer. In fact, it is really the basis of what we should be considering when we look at all of our health-related issues and concerns.
I mean, oldies music is a good
oldies and goodies.
And you think they're oldies from the 70s, but now they're playing it from the 2000s.
Yes.
Those are the oldies. And
I'm
that's
like,
how
oh,
you
these
know
are oldies?
We're becoming oldies.
For sure.
On a lighter note, any final thoughts as we wrap up our Elements podcast? You've got a bunch of herbals here. I told you to bring stuff to show.
I have acupuncture needles I brought here for you, Nick. And then I have, here's one that I use for kidney. Now, sometimes people can feel disruption in the kidney. This is called cold to the bone. This is to help warm the kidney. And remember, the season of the kidney is the winter.
Oh, yes.
It's just quite cold.
Right.
But also the kidney can become dysfunctional in that cold. And so this will help when you feel literally to your bone, you're feeling cold. It's a dysfunction within the kidney meridian and the kidney organ system itself. And so that formula helps to tonify and nourish the kidney and to warm it in particular. Easy Jet is another formula that I got. I got this formula. I made this formula because patients wanted to be able to travel without feeling as much jet lag. And this is a formula that will help with the spleen in the stomach. So why would that be necessary? Well, the spleen and the pancreas, let's put it that way, and the stomach all help with generating blood and blood product as well, and breaking down foods, creating enzymes. So if we can have more blood product, which this helps to do, and more blood flow to the brain and specific organs, then we're going to have less jet lag. So jet lag often is a result of dehydration and poor oxygen saturation to the cells. And so this improves the oxygen saturation by increasing the blood product, and it also improves mental clarity by pushing the blood to important areas and organs of the body.
Can you take that even if you're not traveling?
Yeah, you can. You can. I have another one that if you're not traveling, that's called Nourish Blood that you can take. And it helps the spleen a lot and is probably more ideal than taking the Easy Jet. But you could take the Easy Jet even if you're not traveling.
Nourish Blood tastes better.
Nourish Blood is it's actually really nice flavor. This is a Nourish Liver. So this is specific to just helping the liver to more like an anti-inflammatory and to support the detoxification pathways of the liver. And then the last one that I got here is in Chinese medicine, and we didn't really talk about this. This will probably be on a different one. Is like another basic model of how I look at a patient and determine how we're going to address it. So there's the 5 elements that gives us a basic understanding of systems biology. And then there's another stage of an algorithm that we move through. And that is like, is it inside or is it outside? Is it, is the pathogen an external invasion, or is it a deficiency from within, right? Something like that. So gone viral tends to be an external pathogen. It treats generally an external pathogen where we've contracted something from the external environment that it needs to support and help the body to get rid of. Gone viral will help with that. We've actually used this a whole lot throughout our history in clinic, and we use it a lot for COVID. We use it for pneumonia and bronchitis. We use it for a whole host of different conditions.
What an episode.
Hopefully that was fun and interesting.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
Another episode. We do hope that you support the channel. Subscribe, leave a 5-star review, do all the things. Earth's Medicine Cabinet, where you can find Lionade, this amazing energy drink.
Yeah, and soon you'll be able to find the ozonated olive oil up there too.
Okay, so links
coming
in the description below.
Sounds good.
Be well now, everybody.
Namaste.
Namaste.